There are so many people around the world that have so little, and they have more than most people would even realize.
Welcome to the Freedom Real Estate Podcast with your boy, Andrew, and I'm excited and ecstatic to have the other Andrew Bosco here. And Andrew Bosco is a really cool story. So this guy transitioned from a W-2 to a full-time investor, so we're going to be talking about that. House hacker, became an investor-focused agent, and eventually ascended to the CEO of Candor Realty, one of the largest investor-focused brokerages in Massachusetts. So he goes through a lot of changes over a quick period. I'm really excited to learn about that. How you doing today, Andrew?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So to start, bring us back to young Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Young Andrew. So I think your dad was a contractor, right? A plumber?
So my dad has his master's plumber's license and an electrician. My mom was a professor. My dad was in the gas business too. So they owned real estate growing up.
Sure.
It wasn't like a full-time thing for them, but yeah, they had like a little bit of exposure. They gave me some exposure growing up.
Okay, so interesting dynamic. Your mother was an academic. Your father was a contractor,
trade
right?
guy, yeah.
Brains and bronze. You got a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, they're both pretty smart.
Right.
Yeah, they do the job.
So, going back to your development, so you started just going after the normal W-2 route, right? Like getting good education, get a good job. That's what you thought you needed to do, for the American dream.
Yeah, I mean, I lived the quintessential American dream. I remember, I played college lacrosse, got my degree, did my thing, and I was like, all right, I'll work at a biotech company, worked at a biotech company. And then, to be honest, I lived the dream. I had a great job, caught a car. I was ready to buy an apartment or buy some house or whatever. Saw the bill and I was like, I honestly had a quarter life crisis because I decided to I quit my job. I moved overseas, and I actually moved overseas probably because of Brandon Turner, because in one of his podcasts in Bigger Pockets, he said there's 5 things you got to do before you turn 25, and one of them was travel. And I was like, oh my God, I'm 23 and I've never traveled before. And I just shut everything down and just went overseas and did my thing.
So it was right after college.
Literally, yeah. I worked. My parents were going to kill me. Just finished college. I was a year and a half into my degree.
And you studied what?
I studied biology and education.
Okay.
And so I literally had a teacher's background anyway.
Yep.
And so I had my certification to be a teacher. And my parents were ready to kill me because at 20, I think it was 22 or 23, I just said, "Hey, I'm going to move to Myanmar." And my parents were like, "What? No, you're not."
Wow.
And so I did that. Was there for 2 years. Went to Taiwan for a year. And then I came back to the U.S.
Okay. So you very much did financial freedom backwards, where you went more or less, you traveled the world, you went for experiences, not thinking about money initially. And then did you come to realize the importance of money? And
so part of that whole development of going overseas had to do with the honest take of I was tomorrow's not promised. I lost some friends growing up through different various circumstances that lost their life. And I said, tomorrow's not promised. I got to go see the world. And it opened my eyes a lot. I learned a lot about the U.S., a lot about what the U.S. is and isn't, and around the world as well. Different cultures, different people. And so when I was there, I made it a point of I got to do something while I'm there. So besides being a teacher, I read, I think I read 3 books a month.
Wow.
And so I focused on, the Atomic Habits, 10-hour work week. There was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Art of War. There's a lot of stellar books that people read all the time that I just soaked in. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was a big psychological shift for me, I think, at that time. And I know when I came back to the U.S., I said, I'll get a job, but I got to think about another thing I have to do. I have to figure out what that wealth status looks like. I've traveled. I felt good about that. Now I got to build my foundational self.
So what's the biggest lesson you learned living overseas?
The biggest lesson that I learned living overseas was that America is consumerism incarnate.
Okay.
There are so many people around the world that have so little, and they have more than most people would even realize. They just have a very strong spiritual sense. There's different aspects of their life where consumerism isn't part of their daily life like I feel it is in the U.S. And I feel that a lot of people when I was there, it was very travel, it was very experience. It was a lot of things that motivated them. Again, I was in a third world country at that time. And so the difference of what a first world America looked like versus third world was very stark.
So you saw people more living for passion and less consumerism, right?
100% more passion, more consumerism. There was a different value of family that I saw, I think, that I didn't really get the taste of in the U.S. I also learned that the world is really small. Things that the U.S. was doing was impacting everybody around the world. And that was something that I felt. And I also learned U.S. Capitalism is also a great thing, too, at the same time. Capitalism, I watched a country fall very quickly because, and the people didn't own anything. They had nothing there, whether it was land or whatever. The Chinese Chinese economy, the reality is that they don't own the land. They own the thing on the land. They don't own the land itself. And so I thought that was super powerful. Like, just even that awakening aspect of like, oh, the US, like, you buy the land. Yes, you pay taxes, but you buy the land and the real estate. That's pretty different.
Well, I'm sure it also affected your definition of what freedom is to you, right?
I'd say I learned that I was in a rat race. I learned hard that like there was more to life than just working a 9 to 5, and you would just like work till you're 60 and then die. And I knew that, and I saw like seeing the world traveling, like you got to experience that different culture, that different flavor and taste. I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to do it when I'm 60 and up. So I got to figure out what that actually looks like. And so that was kind of like the big awakening that I had.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest lesson learned in this financial freedom journey is like at the end of the day, it's really not even about the money.
Yeah.
It's more about the time freedom and you controlling what you do at any given time, right?
Yeah, Simon Sinek says it best with like, find your why. It's like find what drives you. And like my why is like a lot of times like I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it within reason. And I want that power. I want that control.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. So it seems like you had that revelation abroad and you came back to the US and you became a teacher, right? If my memory serves me correct.
So I was a teacher overseas. I actually applied to be a teacher in the U.S. and American education system. I had to laugh. They said, "Oh, we won't count your international experience."
Okay.
And I said, "That's ridiculous." I had trilingual students. I've taught interbaccalaureate, which is a different different system than the American standard. A lot of the schools said, "No, it doesn't matter." So I went back into biotech, and I was like, "This is temporary. I'll just do it." I was commuting to Boston like an hour and a half each way, basically, and I asked the science teams after being there for a year, hey, can I jump into the sales role? Like, I think I'm more in the people side of things.
Okay.
And I remember the managers were like, well, you got to get some sales experience. I said, well, can I do an entry-level sales experience role? And they said, no, you have too much experience. You can't do entry-level sales.
Okay.
I said, what if can I get some sales experience? They said, doesn't matter. Sure. I got my real estate license. I met John at a meetup. And so for going to the Candor meetups for free, I was like, I think I get my license. I'd kind of go with those guys. I like that crew. They look like they know what they're doing at Candor. I like the investment route. That's cool. Got my license and then worked in biotech during the day, and then mornings and nights and weekends, I did the agency stuff. So from the agency aspect, it turned into just like, I did I think like 9 million in volume my first year and like part-time, which was pretty cool. So I went back to the biotech guys and said, I'd love to get a sales job. I mean, I just crushed it as an agent part-time. And they said, no, you need biotech sales experience. And I literally just was like, I flipped the bird to them. I was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And so, it's now fast forward and here I am.
You just skipped over like 2 decades in 30 seconds, right? So you got your experience in education, and you very much, I think you leveraged that in your W-2, right? You worked as a project manager and a lot of education, right?
A lot of project management, a lot of education, a lot of consulting, give or take. So my job every day was making sure projects and clients are kind of moving their project forward.
Totally. And I think it's funny you mention that because a lot of times people think sales is being good with people, but a lot of times, in my opinion, sales is actually bringing projects to fruition in a very effective manner, right? And if people understand you're competent and you're trustworthy, like that's a better skill set, in my opinion, than being a good salesperson. Yeah,
I mean, I learned that like really good project management and sales, the hand-in-hand experience, in my opinion, is are you a problem solver?
Exactly.
What are you doing to solve X problem? And the reality is that the problem that someone's telling you is not the problem. There's actually a different problem behind what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And it's how good are you at being a detective and peeling that layer back. That's the most important part.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the best lessons I learned in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is don't ask, how can't I do it? Ask, how can I do it? Right? Because once you understand that there's an infinite amount of solutions to any problem, you can solve anything that comes your way.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I think that's a great mentality, and it's a growth mindset individual standpoint, and I think that's important.
So you worked your W-2.
Yep.
And you leveraged your W-2 into a house hack, right?
Yeah. So my first job, this is a kind of a crazy story. Bought a 2-family with my wife. It was a absolute dumpster fire. Okay. And so we bought this 2-family in Manchester, New Hampshire. We bought it for like low 400s. We put like $50,000 or $60,000 into it. made it a beautiful, livable place.
Did you do the work yourself? Because you have a contractor background?
We had no contractor. We fully just did this thing.
Okay.
So on the top floor, we had a two-family, like I said, had some parking, separate utilities, and the top floor tenants were paying like $800 a month. It was nothing. And I told them flat out, like, the rent is way higher than what it is. And I did the kind of the binder method where I showed them what the market rent was, showed them their condition, and I said, hey, this has to go up. And they basically were like, we're out. Like, we can't do this. So now I had a totally vacant two-family, working my W-2.
Yep.
Mornings and nights, I was sleeping there, doing the work there as much as I can, and then coming back from where we were at our house as well.
So let me ask you this. Andrew. So when you got a vacancy, were you scared? Were you like, oh my God, how can I fill this? What if it doesn't get filled? This mortgage is going to eat me alive. Did you ever experience that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the real fear was the realization that I knew the monthly income I was bringing in. And I said, holy smokes, this mortgage is going to be like 60% of my income.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This is crazy.
Yeah, what if you had to cover it all?
Yeah, and I was like, I got to cover all this while this place is vacant. And like, this is kind of nuts. And so, it was a real fear. And I thought that was a second awakening.
I think that's one of the biggest fears when it comes to new landlords is, what if I can't rent this apartment? Right? And it's like, in the moment, it's scary. But in hindsight, if you literally just look at stats, it's literally impossible. Like, what's the vacancy rate in New Hampshire?
It's like less than 2%.
Like, yeah, I mean, what the worst thing you can do is just lower the rent, and you will rent it, right?
Yeah, and I'd say it was a happy accident was that my wife and I, so the whole place is vacant, and we looked at it, and we were renovating our bottom floor unit that we were going to live in. It was really nice. My wife has really good taste. We did really nice countertops, good floors, good paint color, did the whole jazz.
Okay.
And then we get to the second floor apartment, and we were going to go we were honestly going to go like a little bit less on it.
Yep.
And my wife was like, I wouldn't live here. We got to do it really nice. And it was expensive. I'm not going to lie. But I remember being like, well, if we're going to do a super nice bougie apartment, like, we better get good rent for it.
Yep.
And so, like, at the time, fair market rent was like $1,800 for that size bedroom.
What was that, like a 1-2 bed? Or
it was like a 2-bed at the time. We rented ours for $2,300.
Wow.
And so, like, we went like pretty nice.
Yep.
We did glass shower door, tiled shower. We did like super nice kitchen, like nice cabinets and whatnot. And our tenants have been they were super respectful and really great people. Didn't leave for a long time. I think they're there for 2 years.
So it's funny because you initially were scared, what if I don't rent this apartment? And then you end up renting it $500 higher than what you thought you could rent it for.
And that's the thing. Like, the vacancy lesson was like, embrace the fear, look at it, and there's opportunity. And like, the opportunity actually came from my wife, who was like, let's do a really high-end apartment. And it was like, I don't know, like, everybody's not really doing that. And she's like, well, that's the point. No one's doing it. So like, let's do that.
Well, I think that's the difference between a successful entrepreneur and not a successful entrepreneur. Is if you see a problem, you see opportunity.
Yeah.
Other people, if they see a problem, they cower into a corner. Right. And if you see opportunity in a problem, your success is endless.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think learning to listen is a completely invaluable skill. Listen and then decide. Having that decision-making ability is integral to success.
Totally. I'll just give you a quick example. Like, I don't know, probably a couple months back, I'm closing on a loan and I got a call from a lender and he's like, you have a lot of loans recently that are stabilized. Your global debt service coverage ratio is really bad. Like, we can't give you a loan. And went to underwriting. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's the problem? They're like, well, the problem is your global debt service coverage ratio is low. I'm like, okay. Well, what if I get a key principal, a co-signer that makes up that delta? Would that satisfy your concern? And he's like, yes. And that's exactly what we did, right? So initially the conversation was starting with, this loan will not be approved. I found out what the problem is. I got to the source of the issue. We came up with a solution. We ended up closing that loan.
And I mean, a powerful lesson there is that they're not going to solve it for you.
Exactly.
You need to be the thinker on the spot and it's that experience that you brought in, which is awesome.
Yes. So you went from this duplex, right? And then you became an investor-focused agent.
Yep.
Right, and you became an expert in what was it, medium-term rentals at one point?
Yeah, I did make medium-term rentals at one point, and then I realized I don't want to do this full-term. And you learn what you got to try stuff, and then it's good trying things, but then you realize let's dial it back if it doesn't fit the bill.
So I've done research on medium-term rentals, so I've considered doing it. It's like a hybrid between a short-term rental and a long-term rental, and I did the math. And if you really figure it out with furnishing the unit, with covering utilities, with the additional vacancy, the additional money you would get for a medium-term rental gets eaten up in those costs. You might as well just throw a long-term rental. And I've literally done the math. It's literally not that far off, right? So I just want to, that's just been my personal experience. How about you?
So I think medium-term rental is part of the toolbox. And so I like medium-term rental if you're in a seasonal market for a short-term rental.
Okay.
Where I would say like seasonality-wise, it's a lot of places it's like super high in the summer, super high in the winter, or maybe it's just high in the summer and the rest of the year is kind of dead. That's where medium-term rentals shine. I would say that's their bread and butter spot.
So I love your approach where you take a hybrid approach with short-term rental and medium-term rental and you combine it together, right?
Yeah.
But that's a fantastic approach. But I've seen many investors like go all into only medium-term rental, and I personally think that's, unless you're in an extremely desirable area, as Andrew mentioned, that's a recipe for disaster. You might as well just do long-term rental, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say and personally from like a rental standpoint, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, as you're basically alluding to, and the fact that like sure you could have a commercial building and like do medium-term rental for nurses, but like is the delta really that much better at the end of the day if you're gonna just without the sweat of like just do long-term rentals, so just do Section 8, whatever it is, it might just be easier. I think medium-term rental, the sweet spot is with short-term rental. Combining the two is really the way to go.
So you got your house hack, and while you're working your W-2, let me ask you this: did you think of your W-2 as an asset or a liability?
My W-2 is a total liability. I mean, I got that whole recollection of like, oh my God, I'm paying for this vacancy now by myself. What if I lose my job? We have nothing, and I knew that the moment I was like, oh my God, if this vacancy doesn't get rented and I lost my job, we're screwed. And so to me, it was a complete liability.
It was a liability, and I think this goes back to how you view a problem is how you view everything. And I'm sure you view this, hindsight 2020, that I think the benefit to a W-2 is being able to get sexy home primary occupancy loans for house hack properties, right? And you did that, what, 2 or 3 times with your W-2?
Yeah, so with my W-2, my wife and I were staying in our Manchester place for like a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And so then we found an actual, the play here was, it was a single family in Chester, New Hampshire, and it really was a 3-family. And so I got a 5% loan to go buy that.
Yep.
And I did 0 construction work on it, went to the ZBA, and we got it approved for a 3-family. Literally in 3 months, without swinging a hammer, we raised the equity like by $300,000. Like instantly by going that route while having my W-2, which was, I was like, oh my God, I just made $300,000.
Yeah.
Which would have taken me 2 years at my W-2. Like, this is crazy. I just did this right now.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to your original point, when I had my W-2, I freaking hated it. Like, I hated being there. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was not a good use of my time. But then when I got into real estate investing and I kind of switched it, we're thinking this. I'm using this as a tool, like you said, to get to my end goal. It became a lot more palatable.
Yeah, I think it's a hammer. It's not the solution. It's not like like realistically. If I look at anybody in this camera right now, if you are in your job that you're in right now for 40 years, are you happy? If you're 60 years old, 80, would you be happy? I would honestly say most people would convince themselves they'd be happy because they don't want to upset themselves. Instead of just facing the friction and being like, honestly, no, like I wouldn't be happy, but then they just might just accept it. And I think that's the big thing that most people go through. They go through that transformation or they don't.
It's funny you mention this because I had this epiphany. I was sitting in bed last night. I was thinking about it, right? And I think growing up in my 20s, I think the reason why I wasn't really successful as an entrepreneur, I was a fantastic daydreamer. I would go on these long daydreams, figure out the perfect solution, figure out the perfect reality and live it in my head. Right. And I never applied action to those daydreams. Right. And I think the key to being successful, the key to being an entrepreneur is having a vision and applying action to that vision.
Yeah, I'd say, to comment on that, you and I both know this. Has your entrepreneur journey, has it been linear? Is it just been the same path? Yeah. And I think everyone convinces themselves that like they have to be perfect. And like learning that imperfection is the process. And that the process is the beautiful thing. Like that's actually the juice of being an entrepreneur.
Totally. Just like I'll go back to a book I was actually reading earlier today. Principles. That talks about evolution, right?
Yeah.
I think Ray Dalio talked about the most important principle in the universe is evolution. And the whole point of evolution is it's imperfection action. You grow over time and you evolve over time through action and iteration.
Yeah, and we both were in the STEM field. It's the ironic part. Like they tell you like make mistakes, but like don't. But at the same time, science is making a mistake, and then learning from it, and then applying those principles. And that's the same. Entrepreneurship is the same way, except I think it's less analysis. It's more, well, let's just try it. Did it feel good? Did it work? Okay, let's keep going.
So you had your W-2, you got a couple house hacks, and then at that point, there came a time where you had to make a decision. Do I want to go full-time entrepreneur? Do I want to stay W-2? What was the catalyst for that decision, and what pushed you to make the leap?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the thought process was occurring and I wasn't making the decision. The universe made the decision for me. We had layoffs. And so it was kind of a crazy event. I had like 6 sales closing that month.
Yep.
And I had like 2 more the next month and 2 more the month after that. So I knew sales were coming. And then the company that I worked for said, hey, we're doing a layoff and your group is getting laid off. I'm like, when are you guys doing it? They're like, in 2 weeks. Oh, okay. So then it turned into, I looked at my wife and I kind of like honestly broke down. I was like, I'm a loser. Like I lost my job, this and that. But then I was like, but maybe this is a good thing. Like maybe like I was a part-time agent. I did really well last year.
Yep.
What if I went full-time? Like I could do that. And so then basically the decision was made for me. I went full-time agency and I just was in real estate full-time and just never looked back. And I had some really good support people in the background that were just there to help me.
Well, I think you fast forward over a really important point. Is like you were a part-time agent, you got laid off from your W-2, then you became a full-time agent, right? And I think that's when you made the transition from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur, where you started creating systems, creating processes, hiring people, hiring virtual assistants, and you started creating a resource center to start growing your real estate business. Kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're working at a company, a W-2, whatever that looks like, whoever it is, the systems are there and you're just a part of it. When you're an entrepreneur, like it's all on you.
Yep.
And so the first thing I'm like throughout the numerous books that I've read, they've always said like figure out your top 20% of what you do that 80% of the time. And that was like, okay, what do I not like doing? So I made
Pareto's principle.
Pareto's principle, yep. And so I focused a ton on, I did like a huge audit of like, what did I like doing, what did I not like doing? And then I learned through talking to people like you or Bombachi or anybody else, he was like, find someone that can do what you don't want to do and just have them do it. And then you focus on what makes the most sales. So being an agent, I was like, what do I make money on? Sales. How do I get sales? Seeing buyer leads and seller leads. What do I offload? So for sellers, I had like cold calling, direct mail. I had a bunch of stuff like that. I built those systems. And then for buyers, I had PPL. I had going to meetups, networking. I made it a point to talk to a new person every single week and like lots of phone calls. I built these systems to basically like funnel this business coming in. And, it was phenomenal. It showed me that I could eat what I killed. And that was important to me.
So your first endeavor into entrepreneurship was you created a marketing funnel to start bringing business to you in an automated fashion.
That was essentially my first kind of business that I made.
That was yep. And then how did that result in the success of your agent business?
Yeah, so the agency business was fed off that marketing channel because I realized there's 2 kinds of marketing channels. I realized that I could do my own investment properties.
Okay,
so
for yourself.
For myself, and
Yeah.
that's where Granite and Pine Properties came from.
Okay.
So that was like my acquisition for myself.
Sure.
I could buy those. And then I said, well, if it doesn't work for acquisition, I could do it for agency. So I had 2 different mindsets. One's a fiduciary responsibility to a client. The other one's a fiduciary responsibility to myself.
Of course.
And so I built those 2 funnels and those 2 systems. And I mean, it resulted, in me being the number 2 agent the year prior. So, at the end of the day, it was phenomenal. It worked really well for me. I think I did just shy of like 15 million my first year as a full-time agent.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's a great, so you essentially doubled your W-2 income in the first year on your own.
I probably did more than that because the write-off potential. I bought real estate as well.
Okay.
And I also...
So you talked about that a little bit. So in your W-2, how much did you make?
So I made about $125,000 a year.
Okay, and you made approximately $300K as an agent your first year, right?
Yep.
And how much taxes did you pay on each?
So my first year, I think I owed I have my W-2. I think I owed like 8 or 10 grand in taxes because I had the W-2.
Yeah, but they also take taxes out of your check every week as well.
And for the check, yeah. And so then when I learned about the power of real estate, all the tax benefits, I think I got paid $3,000.
That's ridiculous. So rather than you making 125 and paying probably 30, 40K in taxes annually, you made 300K and you didn't pay taxes.
Yeah, and I had a house hack. So I reduced my monthly expenses. I was more in the system, more in the game, and so I got a ton of benefits.
So just do the math for everybody. Say roughly he makes around 100K post-tax, right?
Yeah.
And then he literally 3x his post-tax money by being an entrepreneur with his one move.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And then when you started creating the systems, becoming a successful investor-focused agent, that's when you kind of leveraged that into being part of a brokerage, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so being part of the brokerage, obviously people might know John Bambachi here, and so the reality is that I've helped John with like some projects internally at Candor, and so he saw me being a full-time agent. I think him and I worked on some projects together, and kind of helping things kind of systematize there a little bit. He saw what I was doing with Granite and Pine, and I think a lot of our values align, and so you can kind of see like where that kind of developed into me kind of growing to where I am today.
Going back to you being an investor-focused agent, you were pretty successful as an investor-focused agent. So what sort of best tactics do you recommend for our audience finding some really good off-market properties?
So I want the audience to know this first, is that one of the first people I called about how to be the best agent was actually Andrew Freed.
Oh.
And so I called him because I knew he was a delegator, knew he was a system guy. And I said, give me the best advice you have for being an agent. And I still tell everybody this. He said, be the unrefutable market expert. Be the person that everybody thinks of for that thing that you want to work on. It was your advice, word for word.
Perfect.
And I remember being like, okay, what am I going to do? So medium-term rentals was one of them. But one of my big piece of advice is just be that expert. Be the guy that everybody thinks of for that thing. If you're a buyer trying to buy something, if you have a deal in, let's just say like Waltham, Massachusetts.
Yep.
If I don't think, and you're the guy that want something there, if I don't think of you, if the network doesn't think of you as the top 3 person to buy, you didn't do your job. The same goes for being an agent. Why should someone work with you? There's so many agents in the country. There are so many people that can be an agent, their mom, their sister. Why should someone work with you and not that person? Be that irrefutable expert that everybody can rely on, especially being an investor agent. Show people that you're that person.
And your first foray into that was the medium-term rental route. And then you realized the market share probably wasn't large enough for that. And then you moved to be focusing in New Hampshire multis and Manchester multis specifically, right?
Yeah, so and that's a lesson in of itself. I learned that I went all in on medium-term rentals, and people still to this day will call me about stuff. And so what I've done to help people give them an idea is I made this like 50 slide deck, like deck in PowerPoint. Yep. And I just give it to people. I'm like, if you need anything, here you go. I brain dumped everything there because people were trying to have me do consultations for them, set their stuff up. And I just honestly didn't want to do it. So I had to shift out of that. I was like, no. I want to be the long-term rental guy in Manchester. I want to be the investor guy in Manchester, New Hampshire, or Southern New Hampshire. So I started at Manchester because it's the biggest hub. And then I grew from there to be like, hey, 2 to 4 unit multifamily or like 5 to 20 units Manchester. I could tell you like the price per unit, the rent, like what's the best street. I got so granular that like I know the zip codes by the back of my hand, even the streets that they're on. And so like people would call me and like I would just rifle off information because they knew what I was talking about.
The most important skill in real estate, decisiveness. You got to be able to move quick, right? If you know the average price per unit, if you know the market, if you know the neighborhoods, you can act quick in that market on any given day.
Yeah. I mean, right now, if I look at you in Worcester and I'm like, hey, Andrew, North End Worcester, I got a 4 unit that's $165,000 a unit. You want it?
Sure.
And you'd be like, I'd say, what does it trade for normally?
I mean, it probably would trade for about $850, $900. I have a 4 unit under contract right now for $950.
Yeah. I mean, there you go, right there. Like you knew the answer right away. Some people that would be like, "Oh, I got to run numbers." It's like if you don't know it right away, like I like how much can I like trust your knowledge and your content knowledge?
Absolutely, and I think that also comes from like investing in our own backyard. You own units in that market. You have your money where your mouth is. It's not coming from a place of unknown. It's coming from a place of you seeing this hitting your P&L day in and day out.
Yeah, I want to see the city of Manchester grow. I want that whole market to grow. I want it to be better. I want it to be the best that it can possibly be. I think it's a great area to invest in. I'm willing to invest in that area. And like I'll look at clients straight up all the time. I'm the first person to tell them don't buy a deal. Like if I look at something, I look at the numbers, I'm like, you shouldn't buy this. And they're like, no, I really want it. I'm like, do you really want it? Like it's like a 6 cap. Are you sure? Do you actually? I think that's a powerful agent move to do. Is you're an advisor. Be so confident that you know it's a good or bad deal. Don't chase the commission check.
You're absolutely right. I think with a purchase being real estate, one of the largest purchases anybody's going to make in their entire life, you don't want a good salesperson. You want an advisor. You want somebody you can trust, right? And what you're proposing is you should be authentic. It should be a trustworthy person, right? And in your business dealings with, if that was somebody on the other side, I would 100% want to work with them. Yeah,
I think like someone's like, oh, how do I build? I think an agent asked me the other day, just like training them, and they were like,
sure.
How do you build trust? And I was like, there's hundreds of ways to build trust, but the easiest way is be honest. Like, would you put yourself in their shoes? Would you buy that deal? And they're like, no, I wouldn't buy it. I'm like, tell them, show them that it's not a good deal. Be so transparent that it wouldn't buy a deal. Yeah, you're losing a commission check, but guess what? You just built a relationship. Your goal as an agent isn't one purchase. It's a lifelong journey. That's what you're in the game long term. Build that trust.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Like getting into this game, getting into real estate, you know, it was early on. You know, I definitely took a transactional approach with lenders, right? Like for lenders, like give me who has the best terms, who has, you know, it all comes down to numbers, right? And over time, I've came to the realization that, you know, to be successful in this business, it's not about transactions, it's about relationships, right? Like, yeah, maybe I give up a quarter point here or there with a lender, but I know they're going to close and I know they're going to do multiple deals with me in the future, right?
Yeah, a relationship, your network is your net worth. That is a common phrase.
Absolutely. And just to put that in the context, just think about this right now. If you ran across, you know, a 5-unit property that it was complete disarray, you know, you buying that and renovating that now, how easy is that now with the relationships you have versus when you first started?
Yeah, I mean, my wife, the 2-family Manchester, we were alone. Like, alone in the sense that, like, my in-laws would help, my parents would help, whatever. But, like, I know 5 contractors, 5 drywallers. Yep. I have all this list of people. Like, I just did a 3-family burr in Manchester. I didn't lift a finger. It was awesome.
And you did it in 2 months.
Yeah, we did it in 2 months. Yeah, my first house hack took me 6 months.
Yes. Exactly.
4 months of missed rent that I could have paid.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And all the time you contributed too.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, Christ. I mean, I probably spent 20 hours a week for 6 months. It was crazy.
Yeah. So let's transition to you being the transition to the president of Candor Realty, right?
Yeah.
Right, so that's a pretty big jump. You go from number 2 agent, we're not going to mention who number 1 is, and then you become the president of Candor Realty. So talk about that transition from going from, owning your own business as an individual agent with a team and kind of going to being more or less a pseudo broker.
Yeah, so the transition, very, very interesting, going from like an individual agent to a team mentor to a CEO aspect. So they're all businesses in and of themselves. And so like being an agent, you're business for yourself. Being a mentor, I got to help other people grow their business now from networking perspective. And like, how do you show other people how to do sales? And it's its own skill.
Yep.
Then being, like, you know, doing the projects at the Candor team, like, et cetera, like going through that internal. Then being the CEO. The transition was, I think it's relationships that we've talked about. It's trust, but like proven demographic. Like I've proved myself in a lot of ways where I was able to take on a task, finish it, and go through. And I think, you know, John and I just building that partnership relationship mindset, it kind of it fell into itself.
Well, you know, I think this goes back to the fact that, you know, your previous history culminated to this role. Like you were previously an educator, you were previously a teacher, you're transitioning that knowledge into this brokerage with teaching our agents, teaching our clients. You know, you were a project manager, you're W-2, you're utilizing that in the workplace now. And then lastly, you're utilizing your leadership skills you've grown over the years as an entrepreneur. So it's culminating into this role right now, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's amazing at how much it touches on the different parts of your life. And I think people are so focused on where they're going that I look back on the process and say that that's what this is all about. It's been the process. I learned something everywhere I went, everywhere I worked, everything I did. It led to where I am right now, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a magical path that, like, in the moment, it just feels like grind. It just feels like work. You really don't see the beautiful image if you scope out. But years down the road, you could see the mosaic kind of come to vision.
And I think that's honestly why, like, if you look at, in my opinion, a lot of successful people, they will work out incessantly, because it's amazing. Like, if you like physically work out your body, you're seeing the change. That career change is very tough to see because it's so long path. If you look at, I mean, we only have 12 months in a year. We're already like almost done month 2. And I've asked some people, hey, have you hit any of your goals yet? And the 80% of people will say, holy crap, we're 2 months done the year. Like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, are you anywhere near your goals? Not even anywhere close. And I'm like, and they're like, I have some time. I'm like, yeah, you got 10 months. Like, you're good. But like, I would start that process now. Like, and that's the CEO mindset, is like, listen, it's a whole year. Take the time, like, break it up into quarters. What are you going to do? Like, what's the big thing you want to do this quarter, and kind of go through that route.
Yeah, it's a 10,000 foot perspective. You got to zoom out to what's 10 years look like, what's 5 years, what's 1 year look like, and reverse engineer the steps you need to get to that 1 year, right?
Yep. No, absolutely. I think that's important to just say, like, what are we actually looking at? What's the year goal? Like, what is the thing you want to hit, and just reverse engineer backwards.
Totally. And I think the other important thing is understanding truly what a key performance indicator KPI is, right? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand the key metrics they need to do to be successful, right? Let me ask you this. As an agent, what are some KPIs that people focus on that really don't push the needle forward?
Most people that I hear would say, I want to help 10 people a year or 10
Sure.
deals. I'm like, well, what's help? Like, define help. Like, what does that mean? And they're like, oh, I want to do 10 sales. I'm like, okay, is that buyers or sellers? And then they're like, I don't know, eight buyers and 2 sellers. I'm like, okay, how are you going to get to that goal? I don't know. So like, they don't build the system. They don't build the goal for what it is. If you tell me what you want, how are you going to get there? If your goal is to help 10 people in a year, I'm going to say, how many people do you have to talk to help one person?
So you're really proposing, I think, what is it, the SMART approach?
Yep.
Well, you have to be very, very particular and have specific metrics of how you're going to achieve your goals. In your particular scenario, you're saying, if I want to do 10 deals, I would want to do 10 multifamily properties between 2 to 4 unit properties for house hackers in the Worcester markets. And I want 80% of them to be listings, 20% of them to be buyers, right? Like, that's a specific goal that you could see me obtaining, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we would just work back and say, okay, I can work with that. Now, how many people did you do last year? Let's say if you did 2 sales.
Yep.
Let's say, how many people did you talk to?
Yep.
And they're like, I talked to 20. I'm like, okay, that means for every 10 people you talk to, it's 1 sale. So if you're trying to help 10 of them, that means you go talk to 100.
Yep.
And like, we would work that way. And it'd say, so how do you get to 100 people? Is it sphere of influence and social media? Is it going to meetups that we host? Is it just going to other venues? Like, what is the thing? And we would work backwards. And that's the CEO route now. Like, that's helping every agent that I work with is like, let me talk to you about your goals. What do we got to do to get there?
Yeah, so more or less, you're just guiding them down their vision.
I feel like a shepherd all the time. I tell everybody, like, I grew up on a farm, and I'm like, listen, I'm the shepherd most of the time. Like, where can I push you to go in the right direction that I think that you want to go?
Well, I think this goes back to the whole point about daydreaming versus taking action. I mean, I can dream of closing 10 deals, right? But if I don't have specific metrics and actions and a vision to get to those goals, I might as well just be in the classroom being asleep.
Yeah, I mean, this is the crazy thing I think about all the time, which is like, most people just say, I want to do sales. I'm like, that's great. Did you know 70% of agents don't do a single deal every year? 70%. And there's millions of agents in the country that don't do 1 deal. It's because they don't have goals. They don't reverse engineer. They're not accountable. And so it's bringing that accountability in front and being like, what is the every single week thing you have to do?
So just to bring that full cycle, when it comes to accountability, it seems like you're definitely accountable. You know how to keep people accountable. So are there any good resources you recommend or any books that help you get to that level of accountability and discipline?
I'd say accountability, whatever your goal is, reverse engineer it, but use a scorecard. Scorecards for those
so make it trackable.
Make it trackable. And when I say scorecard, I mean, this is for anybody, but like, whatever your goal, if you want to save $10,000, okay,
Sure.
Let's start. That's an easy one to work with. What do you have to do on a weekly basis to save 10,000? Is it eating out one time less, which is $100? Okay. So if it's $100 every week in 52 weeks, do the math. You're halfway to your goal. Figuring out and do it every single week. Track every week. Take 10 minutes to check with yourself on a trackable measurement and to make yourself accountable. So what I do for my own accountability is I give myself a few different categories of things I want to hit: physical, mental, like social goals, and then professional goals as well. And I basically every week on like Sunday night, typically, I'll spend 20 minutes and I'll just go through the list and say, where am I at?
Sure.
What am I doing? Easiest one that most people can relate to is weight. So like, I've made it a point, like every other day, I'll like weigh myself and I'll do a weekly average. Where am I at? What am I doing? And like, I'll see if the number's going down, and then I'll backtrack. What did I do? What were my macros? That's an easy one most people can relate with. For sales, it would always be conversations. It'd always be leads. It'd always be, how many offers did I write? Someone, I want to do 4 fix and flips this year is a good example. How many offers do I have out to even get fix and flips? Let's say I have 20 and I have no offers in. So I have to now look back at my offers. Were they too competitive? Were they too aggressive? Am I making enough offers? Those are kind of the ways that I always do that, a little bit of check-in on Sunday.
So, I mean, you're more or less, you want to come up with goals and visions for the future, but it sounds like you want to have a critical reflection of your past to see is this in alignment with my future?
Yeah, I think it's just it's intentional. I think most people, and I'll blanket statement say this, will go through life not being intentional. The moment you awaken to realize to be intentional is to live with purpose and to know that you can get your goals if you are intentional, your whole life changes.
It's funny because, I don't know if there's been times in your life where you weren't intentional, and you just did the grind, and you blinked, and before you know it, 3 years went by. Like, that happened in my 20s to me. I worked at Boston University. Like, 4 years went by in a blink of an eye. I'm like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. Right? And if you look back and you're like, how much, what money did I save? What did I do? You probably took 1 or 2 vacations a year.
Yeah.
You probably saved 20, 30, 40 grand, whatever it was. And like, yeah, it's amazing at how like life is fast. It's quick.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, Andrew, you provide our audience a ton of value in your development, from W-2 worker to entrepreneur to eventually a business owner, right? Now, when it comes to what you're doing in the future, what's that look like for you? What are your goals? What are your visions? Where do you see yourself, 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I mean, with Candor, I always tell everybody, like, I'm on a 5-year track, the way I look at it. I have certain goals in 5 years I want to hit.
Okay.
10-year goal for me, besides, the personal stuff of like being the best dad I can be, being a great husband,
Yep.
seeing more of the world. 10-year goal for me, I think, is for personally running. I'd like to own a handful of real estate related side businesses, whether it's HVAC, pest control, whatever. I'd like to run and operate and manage those because it feeds into the real estate business. I'm figuring what that looks like still, but giving back, bringing back that international experience, giving back in some way to like the world society. I'm looking at it from like whether it's like coral reef restoration, Habitat for Humanity, starting like an ecotourism thing, maybe having like a compound where like there's ecotourism. I'm trying to figure out how to bring that liveliness, that flavor of what I have in the past to bring to local communities and whatever that looks like.
Really, really cool stuff. So, I think my final question is, if you could give 3 pieces of advice to younger Mr. Bosco on how to be successful and be the man you are today, what 3 pieces of advice would that be?
If I talk to my younger self, I would say, the first thing I would say is, you're a hustler and you're grinding. Don't stop. Just don't stop. It'll be okay. If you work hard and show up and you're intentional, it'll be okay. That's number 1. Number 2, I would say, you're doing a really good job taking in information, and a lot of information. You got to wake up and start doing stuff.
Okay.
You got to wake up and take action. I spent years consuming, never did anything. If I just, instead of the 5 years of reading 300 books, I bet if I read 50 books and did it in year 1, I would have been fine.
Yeah, totally.
And I'd say the third, if I talked to my younger self, would be, don't regret anything. Everything you did was for a purpose. Going abroad, picking that right job, doing everything I made for my personal self-decision. There was a reason for it, and it is going to get you to where you want to go.
There's a mosaic in sight.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, just want to thank the CEO of Candor, Andrew Bosco, for coming on the Freedom Real Estate Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you think people want to follow you and find out more about you, where can they find you?
You guys can all find me on Instagram, Andrew Bosco 91. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm an open book. My email's out there, so open world for anybody that wants to reach out. Happy to give you a hand.
Cool. Appreciate you, Andrew, and thank you for the Freedom Real Estate audience. Please check us out and subscribe. Take care.